In this video, we explore the chapter titled Work and Vacations from the book Self-Development, A Handbook for the Ambitious by Addington Bruce. It is in the public domain. There are many, I quote from the preceding chapter, to whom work is an unpleasant thing which they would fain evade. Actually, work is one of the real essentials of life, and work or starve is an inexorable law of nature which no one need hope to violate with impunity. This I say with full consciousness of the fact that many do seem to violate it without incurring evil consequences. Having earned or inherited wealth, they stop working and seemingly get along well enough. Others, though not wealthy, decline to work and instead live on the bounty of charitable relative or friends. They may not be as well fed as the rich, but certainly they would not describe themselves as starving. Yet, in the case of both the rich non-worker and the poor non-worker, nature soon or late exacts her penalty. Bear in mind, if you please, that nutrition is not simply a matter of eating a certain amount of food every day. The food eaten has to be digested. Waste products contained in it have to be eliminated. Its heat-producing, energy-producing, and tissue-building components have to be utilized, or they will clog the whole organism. Now, nature has so designed things that when a man habitually avoids work, someone or all of these health-maintaining processes are disturbed. Partial compensation, it is true, may be gained through energetic play, but the man disinclined to work is usually also disinclined to energetic play, and in any event, he cannot obtain through habitual play the mental contentment which comes with regular systematic work. That is how nature circumvents those who would, day in and day out, substitute play for work. Dissatisfaction gradually takes possession of their minds. Consciously or subconsciously, they appreciate that they are not doing the right thing, and they become restless, uneasy, unhappy. Then they begin to starve as surely as though they fail to eat food sufficient for the body's needs. As a result of physical inactivity, they may put on flesh. They may indeed seem to be plump and well nourished, but their nervous system are not being fed as they ought to be. Their stomachs, kidneys, livers, reacting to the unfavorable mental state, are not doing their work properly. Lack of nutrition is a constant fact in their lives. However good their outward appearance, they actually are in a state of starvation. Scientific research has definitely established the truth of this. Idlers, tested by the methods of modern science, have again and again been found suffering from a peculiarly weakened condition of the nervous system, with poor circulation, a slow heartbeat, and low blood pressure. Their complaint that they feel too tired to work is thus well grounded, that they are tired because they are afflicted with the weakness of starvation, which also helps to explain the fact that many men, having been hard workers, break down in health soon after retiring from business. Deprived of regular occupation, failing to keep their minds actively employed, they too experience the harmful effects of dissatisfaction that makes for malnutrition. All of which suggest, of course, that work, even so-called overwork, is not nearly so potent a cause of ill health as is idleness, and that, in particular, is not nearly so potent a cause of mental and nervous trouble as it is commonly supposed to be. Though, in all fairness to the lay public, it should at once be added that responsibility for the persistence of the hoary delusion as to the predominating part played by overwork in causing nervousness must, to some extent, be borne by the medical profession itself. You've been working too hard, many a physician will tell a nervous patient. All you need is rest, then you will be all right again. Perhaps the outcome justifies this cheerful prognosis, but that does not prove that overwork was the chief cause of the difficulty. The patient may have been working at something for which he was not well adapted, hence working badly, and hence working under a psychic strain because of his inefficiency. He may have been working by a faulty method, which again would produce psychic strain. Or he may have been psychically disturbed because his work was not bringing adequate financial returns. 9 times out of 10, psychic stress of some sort, especially worry, is the real cause of breakdowns attributed to overwork. Though, to be sure, it by no means follows that one should, or safely can, work day after day without holiday intervals, thinking all the while of nothing but one's work. This may have truly serious consequences, and if many people seem to have a mania for idling, there are some others, though far fewer, who have fully as harmful a mania for work. Refusing to relax in any way, they give no rest whatever to the brain cells occupied with the cares and problems of the work maniac's daily tasks. Consequently, these cells become fatigued and go on strike. At once, their possessors begin to fall off in their work unaccountably and alarmingly. Then they begin to worry, but worry only makes matters worse for them. It keeps them awake nights, upsets their digestion, causes frequent headaches, and poisons their whole systems. Nervous exhaustion is the verdict of the physicians they finally consult. You need a real holiday more than anything else. Alas, the work maniacs have been so busy attending to business that they have never learned how to take a real holiday. For that matter, they are not alone in their ignorance of genuine holiday making. Many who really know how to work wisely are sadly inefficient vacationists, as is proved by the fact that they return from vacations feeling that they have been cheated out of the good time they counted on having, and perhaps more tired than when they went away. They may even come back really ill and unfit to work for weeks or months. All this is wrong. It is contrary to the natural order of things, and it usually is the result of preventable mistakes by the vacationists themselves. Perhaps the commonest of these mistakes, and one by no means confined to work maniacs, is failure to banish from the mind all thoughts of the daily work. This is particularly necessary if one's work is of a character that requires intense concentration while one is engaged in it. There are not a few people who, when they go on vacation, carry with them figuratively or actually some unfinished work and develop part of their vacation to its completion. But it is better far to postpone the vacation than to interlard it with routine tasks. A working vacation is almost as bad as no vacation at all. On the other hand, it is likewise a mistake to let the vacation degenerate into a season of inert loafing. Only those whose work has seriously overtaxed them have any excuse for spending a vacation in absolute idleness. And even they will be wise to busy themselves part of every day in pleasurable activity of some sort. To them, I would offer the special advice. Quote, give the crowded resorts of vacationists a wide berth. Seek out some quiet place among the hills or by the sea. Take old clothes with you and some good books, including at least 1 or 2 nature study books. Make friends with nature from the start. Nature, though you may not appreciate it, is one of the best friends you can have on any vacation. Get intimately acquainted with her. Explore the countryside, leisurely, observingly. Forget your work in studying the ways of animal and insect life, the beauties of meadow and glen and rolling hillside. Specialize in sunsets and also sunrises. Rival the farmer folk in early wooing of sleep and breakfast with them. Nap, if you please, at odd moments during the day. Eating your luncheon on the bank of a singing brook, it will be no surprise if its music lulls you to sleep soon after you have eaten. The doze will benefit you. So will the loafing in a hammock under the pines, whither you perhaps make your way for a couple of hours reading in the late afternoon. Possibly you will want to do some fishing. Possibly you are eager to climb the mysterious mountain beyond which the sun sinks daily. Possibly you aspire to walk to the nearest village 5 or more miles away. Very well. Do any or all of these things if you can do them without undue exertion. Amuse yourself as you please, provided only that the amusing energizes, not devitalizes you. That is the great thing, the all-important thing. It is the great thing for every vacationist, not for the already overtaxed merely. And in more ways than one, many vacationists let their vacations devitalize them. Some err by choosing vacation homes so remote from the scene of their labors that the vacation is well nigh spoiled for them by the wearisome journey that precedes it. Others make the even more serious mistake of beginning their vacation too strenuously. A person of sedentary or virtually sedentary occupation cannot reasonably expect to plunge instantly into a vigorous outdoor life without experiencing ill effects. Yet this is what many people of sedentary occupation do. The clerk whose muscular exercise has been pretty much limited to handling light merchandise or using a pen goes to the mountains for a vacation. The day of his arrival, or the next morning, he blithely sets out to climb the highest peak in the vicinity. He may achieve his ambition of getting to the summit, but the tramp back to his hotel or boarding house is sure to be a painful one, and it can be taken for granted that for the next few days he will be more interested in the arnica bottle than in the mountain climbing. Manifestly, what he should have done is to have fitted himself for his ambitious attempt by a few days of light preliminary walking. Then he would have escaped lameness and exhaustion. As with this clerk, so with thousands of vacationists, physical overdoing is their bane. They have left home to play, and sometimes they play harder than trained athletes would think of doing. Or another point of real importance, they may misuse their vacations and weary themselves excessively by playing in ways that do not really interest them. They may be so constituted, for example, that camp life has no true appeal to them. Yet they allow friends to persuade them to go camping, and in consequence find their vacation the reverse of enjoyable. The rule regarding play is the same as the rule regarding work. Endeavor to select that which is most congenial. This is something all of us should remember. Interest in play activities being absent, they cannot hold the attention. As in idleness, the mind will then tend to wander to thoughts of self, to worries, perplexities, anxieties, etc. Fatigue will rapidly develop, whereas the keener the play interest and the wider the range of play interest, the greater will be the likelihood of real rest being gained. The kind of rest that sends the vacationist back to town in distinctly better condition, both physically and mentally, than when he left his working place for a temporary change of activity and scene. End of chapter. Stay here as I roll on to the next section here titled Trifles That Handicap. Working earnestly when working, playing wisely when playing, and devoting some time daily to self-improvement by the measures recommended on earlier pages of this book, the man eager to make headway in life must all the while be vigilantly on guard against certain seeming trifles that may appreciably handicap him. In this category come many things to which numerous people give no thought whatever, or almost no thought. For example, the busy, ardent worker, absorbed in the special problems of his vocation, may think the question of the way he dresses too trivial to be worthy of any particular attention. But suppose his business is such as to bring him into constant contact with other people. Suppose success in that business depends largely on the impression he makes on others. I know salesmen, and so in all likelihood do you, whose income has always been unfavorably affected by the untidiness of their appearance. And I know professional men who have been held back because they were so occupied with things of great importance as to pay not the slightest heed to trifles like the shine of their shoes and the cleanliness of their collars. Many a man would be repaid by taking to heart the advice I once heard given to the students of a business college. The speaker was himself a businessman of wide experience, and out of the knowledge he had gained from the school of life, he talked to his hearers in heart-to-heart fashion. You will all of you be looking for jobs soon, he said, and there is one piece of advice I want to impress on you. Be scrupulously neat in your personal appearance. I would rather hire a man whose clothing was poor but properly brushed and pressed than one who came to me wearing an expensive suit but with soiled cuffs and shoes in need of blacking. From experience, I would know that the former would almost certainly turn out to be self-respecting and industrious, while the latter would almost as certainly be careless of my interests as well as his own, and might into the bargain be lazy, shiftless, and sadly unreliable. If you can help it, though, don't go looking for a job in a poor suit of clothes. Wear just as good a suit as you can afford, provided it isn't dudeish. Show me a dude, and I'll show you a man who is good for very little except looking well dressed. There can be no doubt that clothes and the way they are worn do, to a surprising extent, reflect the character of their wearer. Also, they play a part in shaping his character. In New York City, there used to be, perhaps there still is, a certain exceedingly practical mission for the redemption of drunkards, tramps, and vagabonds of all descriptions. This mission was connected with a church, and great reliance was naturally placed in the redeeming influence of religious teaching. But the people who conducted the mission were also alert to the importance of reckoning with material influences in the reshaping of character. In many ways, they provided for the material well-being of the derelicts who came to them. One way in which they provided for them was by keeping a cobbler busy putting new heels on their shoes. They did this on the sound theory that a man whose heels are worn away will almost inevitably slouch more or less, that the physical slouchiness will contribute to moral slouchiness, and that by making it easier for a man to stand physically erect, he will find it easier to stand morally erect. Experience vindicated this policy, as in fact it has always vindicated the larger theory of which, after all, this repairing of heels is only a particular application. The theory that mind and body are so intimately related that everything which favorably influences the one is bound to influence the other favorably, and that everything which affects the one will unfavorably will also have an unfavorable effect on the other. For that matter, the mere consciousness that he is standing more erect, as he can do when wearing proper heels, has itself a strengthening influence on a man's character. So has the consciousness that his person is clean, his clothing neat, and in good repair. The working efficiency, too, is directly promoted by the pleasurable sentiments which good clothing, especially if it is really comfortable clothing, creates in its wearer. One should assuredly, for the sake both of efficiency and of health, make certain that one's clothing is comfortable. This is another trifle of considerable importance, and there are many ways in which the clothing may be uncomfortable, as enumerated by George Van Ness Dearborn in his treatise on the psychology of clothing. Quote, coat collars behind may be too high, waistcoats too tight or too short, trousers too waistly tight, their legs too long, the armholes too small, the coat sleeves too long, and an irregular fitness all over the body. Then add scratchy hard collars and tight shoes and hot hats and ill-fitting underwear, and it is certain that to a man or woman whose efficiency is closely related to freedom of mind and to relative comfort, the clothing matter is one of much importance. End quote. Even a slight pressure from badly fitting shoes may appreciably lower the rate of mental functioning, and the constructive action of a collar that is too small may lengthen by hours the working out of business problem. Tight neckwear, moreover, is condemned by some medical authorities as being contributory to the development of sundry serious conditions of ill health, from nervousness to arteriosclerosis. Yet there are thousands who ignore completely the possible physiological and psychological effects of the clothes they wear, accounting this a matter of no significance, as may also be said with regard to many another trifle that has unsuspected possibilities for hampering or promoting progress. A rim of black along the edges of the fingernails is a trivial thing in the opinion of many people, but there are others who consider it of such importance that they will not give employment to anybody who displays it. Again, to be a few minutes late in getting to one's place of work and to quit working a few minutes ahead of time may plausibly be held a mere triviality. Many so hold it, yet actually it accounts for so much that it may mean the loss of one's position. Equally costly, as not a few have discovered to their sorrow, is the triviality of impertinence when spoken to by employers and customers. Perhaps I was a bit fresh, is the rueful admission later. But he had no call to fire me for a little thing like that. Yet the firing is an accomplished fact, which would of itself be sufficient proof that freshness is hardly as trivial as it may seem. Thoughtless inaccuracy of statement is another triviality that, in the business and social world alike, often counts heavily against those addicted to it. One does not have to be a deliberate falsifier to suffer severe penalties for not stating things correctly. By many, also, it is considered of small moment to gossip idly with fellow employees at frequent intervals during the workday. The employer is likely to take an altogether different view, and the employer is in a position to demonstrate conclusively that the gossiping habit is not quite so trivial as its devotees insist. Yet another trifle, to be zealously guarded against, is found in what are known as mannerisms, little eccentricities of speech or gesture peculiar to the person displaying them, and usually displayed without his being aware of the fact. People who have to talk much to others, preachers, public speakers, salesmen, etc., are especially liable to develop mannerisms, but they may be developed by anybody, and if only because they detract from the personality by arousing in others sentiments of annoyance or a pitying amusement, they are defects which ought to be guarded against and overcome. To be sure, it is not impossible to achieve a high degree of success even though handicapped by mannerisms. Many eminent statesmen, pulpit orators, and lawyers have demonstrated this. The great Gladstone, to give an example, had the singular mannerism when speaking in public of occasionally striking his hands so violently together as to drown the sound of his words. But the power of his personality was such that this interfered not a whit with his popularity. So with many other famous men who might be mentioned. Nevertheless, the fact remains that for the great majority of people, a mannerism is a crippling defect, which should be corrected as soon as possible. In Grenville Kleiser's Talk on Talking will be found mention of a large number of commoner mannerisms. These include pounding the air when speaking, clutching the lapel of the coat, putting the hands on the hips, wringing the hands, crossing the arms, rocking the body to and fro, audible smacking of the lips, slurring final syllables of words, speaking in a drawling monotone, in a tone of condescension, or with a sudden shifting from one extreme of pitch to another. Also might be mentioned, though not included by Mr. Kleiser, such mannerisms as jingling coins in the pocket, fidgeting with a fob or a watch chain, running a hand through the hair, placing the hand on the person with whom one is talking, insistent staring into his eyes, and the opposite mannerism of looking anywhere but at him. If one is in a vocation that brings one much into oral contact with other people, it may be found highly profitable to give some thought to this subject of mannerisms with special reference to oneself. To cite still a few more trifles that handicap, take the case of a worker who in the course of the day has to make much use of pencil and paper. Pencils and paper are obviously trifles as compared with the uses to which they may be put. But if the paper is so rough as to slow down the writing on it, and if the pencil is so hard as to require undue expenditure of energy to write what afterward is too faint to be read without eye strain, then clearly pencils and paper are not exactly trifles in their relation to working power. Incalculable is the time that has been lost by the unnecessary strain that has been put upon business and professional men who have persisted in regarding pencils and paper as negligible trifles. Likewise, in respect to the trivial matter of desks and chairs. When these are too high or too low, when it is impossible to work at them in other than a cramped and stooped position, sensations of discomfort are consciously or subconsciously experienced, interfering with the orderly, efficient working of the mind. Also, there are disturbances in the blood flow to the brain, further interfering with mental processes. The location of the desk, again, is not the trifle it may seem. If it is so placed that the worker is in a poor light with his work, becomes more and more difficult to him by reason of the extra demand made on his vision. Shifting the desk only a few inches to the right or to the left may mean a truly surprising increase in his power to do good work, hence in his earning ability. The reading light on the desk, is that adjusted so as to illumine the work without striking directly or indirectly into the eyes? A trifle, you say? Perhaps. But a whole army of workers relieved of headaches and fatigue sensations by a rearranging of their lighting equipment know that it is a trifle which may mean as much to their competency as to their comfort. Bethink yourself, then, of trifles such as these when pondering the problem of raising your personal efficiency. You really cannot afford to ignore them. Perhaps the slowness of your progress, which you are inclined to attribute to nothing but bad luck, may be due in large measure to your persistent ignoring of decisive trifles. This question of bad luck, by the way, is itself a subject deserving of more than passing mention. To it we will now turn. End of chapter. My name is Daisy. Welcome to my channel. And if you haven't done so, please do hit that like button. Leave me a comment. What do you think about these points this author brought up? And share this with your friends if you feel like there is someone that could benefit from this information. So let's head over to the next video and find out about that life and luck.